Hey, you guys, welcome to this episode of The Rachel Cruze Show. Now, I've heard a lot of people talking about the doom and gloom of America, that America is doomed. We're never going to recover. You know, whether you watch the news or you see it on social media, it just feels like this narrative is so common. And again, it feels like people consistently are saying that there's so much change in our culture, in our society, in our economy. We're never going to go back to the way it was. It's going downhill. And it's just like doom, gloom all the time. And so, especially over the past couple of years, which obviously we experienced a ton of change, I am feeling this narrative more and more. And sometimes I wonder if like every generation feels this way, right? Where you're like, oh my gosh, is the world coming to an end? And there's a video going around right now from a guy who says that America is spiraling downhill because we are overdue for a big crisis. And the video's gotten over 2 million views on YouTube, and people are talking about it. So people are worried. I understand 100%. But as I was watching this video, I was like, okay, this is fascinating. So I wanted to take some time to unpack just 3 of his claims by looking at the facts. And in the video, again, he mentions his 3 main ideas about the future. And his first key for the future is memory. So this is interesting because he talks about the generational theory, which suggests that a crisis happens every 80 years. And supposedly every 80 years or so is when the oldest generation in our society passes on. So there's no one left who's lived through this historic event to go and educate the younger generations. So since there's no one that has the actual memory of the hardship that they faced and the perseverance they had to, push through, the mistakes that they learned from, all of that they are gone, and there's no one from that generation left. So this theory is saying that we are cycling through that defining moment of conflict because of our timeline. And because of this, some people are concerned that we are due for our next big conflict. While others are saying that we are in the middle of a big conflict right now. But he says that lots of millennials in particular are feeling nostalgic back to simpler times, like how they grew up in the 90s. Okay, so this is fascinating because you think about the people that were raised, in the Great Depression, World War II, all of that. And it's like your grandparents, and for a lot of people, they have passed on. And so having that connection to people that have been through something really difficult, really hard, what they learned from, the mistakes that maybe they made, things that they look at, like that perspective is really important. And not that we haven't gone through something hard over the last 80 years, but you do think about that great generation. And yeah, I think there's something really true about that. And that's why I think it's really important to read. I think that's why it's really important to understand history, because you don't want to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. And some people are saying we're doing that now. But I do think looking to the past is really important to learn for the future. So I do like that point. Okay, his next point is about the Greek word gnosis, which just means knowledge to an elevated degree. So he claims that people today know a little bit about a lot of things, and very few people are actual experts on really complex ideas. And so a lot of us, again, kind of have this inch deep but a mile wide thinking mentality. And that makes sense because of social media and all these short clips that we see, the news stories that we watch for 4 minutes. And it's like we are bombarded by headlines and articles on all these major issues. So we kind of feel like we are dabbling in all these different things, but we're not going deep into an issue. And I would say that's true. I don't know if that's the decline of a culture. I haven't gone that deep with it, but I do think it can be really dangerous where you're like, okay, I read 3 articles and I feel like I'm an expert now and that I can go and, work in this field or do this thing. And you're like, no, like you actually need to study what is going on. And that's why I love getting professionals in my corner, people that are tax professionals or getting a great insurance agent or an investment professional, right? Like and I know this stuff because I teach it, but there's only to a point that I'm like, I'm going to know every detail of it. So getting people around you that are actual experts on things is really important. So when we go off on our own and think that we know everything, and again, this could be everything from parenting or money or, fill in the blank, it can be dangerous. And I probably have a little bit of this in me because I do love to research and I can go down rabbit holes. And it's like I spend 2 hours on one subject going down a rabbit hole. I'm like, I understand it all. I understand how the world works. And it can be easy to think that. So we do have to be careful where we're getting our knowledge from and what we're putting into practice in our life. That's why I like, even specifically when it comes to money, things that have a long track record. Look at someone who's giving money advice or something that they're talking about that has a long track record that you know is proven. So I would agree with him, I guess. I don't know if I would say it's the demise of a culture. Maybe it is, but I think it's very true that we have only a limited level of knowledge on a lot of things, but not very deep on one. Guys, I know we're all looking for ways to save, especially on healthcare costs. So do yourself a favor and check out Christian Healthcare Ministries. It's biblically based health cost sharing that could help keep your budget under control. So learn more today at chministries.org/budget. All right, the last point he says, according to the video, the economy is the third key to the future, and there's something called the big cycle. And apparently a change in world powers occurs every 250 years. And according to history, the wealth disparity creates a risk for extreme leaders to take control. And lots of people are saying that the gap between the wealthy and the poor is growing larger and larger. And some are afraid that we're heading in that direction. But because of that, then again, these big powers can take over and all of it. So here's where I may have a little bit of a different perspective, is because of my job and talking to so many of you throughout the years, like, oh my gosh, hundreds of thousands from events and people being on the Ramsey show and interacting with you on social media. I've just seen so many people get out of their current situation because they had the hope and the belief that they could. And so regardless of the income they were making, the debt level they were at, this belief that they have the ability to take control of their lives and what's going to change their future is them. That's where I'm like, there is something still in the world that people have that belief. And if we lose that belief altogether, then yeah, I think there's a level we're doomed. But there's enough of you out there that are taking control of your money and saying, regardless of where I'm at, if I do smart things with my money, if I live on less than I make, if I save, if I don't buy things and go deeply in debt, if I invest over a long period of time, if I do these things, I will become stable and grow wealth and be able to win with money. So I see enough of that as like the Pollyanna person in life. I'm not trying to be Pollyanna, but for real, people changing their lives because they believe that they can, regardless of what's going on above them, if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't know if I fully agree with him on that, because I just believe that there's enough people in our world who still believe that they have the ability to change their lives. So are we doomed to never recover financially? Well, let's just look at some facts, okay? So yes, a lot of things have changed, even over the last 20 years. Think about 20 years. It was 2 years after 9/11, which was a traumatic reset in America. And then you had 07 and 09, and it was a huge crisis financially. I mean, it was one of the greatest drops in our economy since the Great Depression. And again, you look at like the summer of 09 and where the market was, like it was tough. But what I do look at, even just at the market, yes, while things are up and down, the trajectory is still going up. And also another factor that always plays a part in the economy is inflation. And so many experts say that a small amount of inflation is a good thing. It creates a healthy environment to grow and thrive in the economy. But the Federal Reserve says 2% is ideal, where we are at 6 to 7%. So that is not ideal. And we're feeling it. Wages are not keeping up with inflation. People feel like that still everyday expenses are just so much more expensive, and that margin they may have had in their budgets is shrunk. It's not there. But again, the good news is that you look back over 7-8 months of steady inflation decline, actually, and the yearly inflation rate is predicted to be at 3.2% at the end of this year. So we don't have a crystal ball, but that's a positive we can look at. And then also I would say another positive is no major pillar of our financial system is gone, right? Like the stock market is not gone. The government hasn't taken away our 401ks and Roth IRAs. Major insurance stuff isn't just gone. Like these pillars of our financial life that are really big for us to survive are not just completely wiped out, right? If they start taking away some of that stuff, I would be like, what's going on? But overall, I'm like, I just think that we can still win. I saw a TikTok video of someone on the opposite end of the spectrum. His parents were immigrants that came into this country like 30 years ago. And he was saying how something ridiculous, like everyone should have a $200,000 Lamborghini. $200,000 is nothing. Meaning There is so much money to be had. Like, there is so much opportunity. You guys are missing it out. There's money to be made everywhere. How do you not see it? And his perspective, coming from a family that immigrated to this country, was like, there's opportunity everywhere. So it's just so interesting to see, again, people's perspectives and how they look. So I like to look at facts. I like to look at things that have a long trajectories, patterns that are going on. So while there's a lot of theories floating out there, I just really believe that we're going to be okay. I do. I really, really do. Now, Rachel in 5 years from now, who's hiding in a bunker eating her canned beans, may say something different if like the world goes crashing around us. But I just don't think that's the reality. I really don't. I think that there's a lot of uncertainties still. I think we're not going to see a perfect economy. There's going to be ups and downs like there always have been. But I am just being stable. I really am. And in the midst of change, I think one factor that is really, really key is to be consistent. Be consistent on what you do with your money and put things in place to have those safety nets. I mean, don't have debt. When you have debt, you have risk. When you owe people money, that is a level of risk in your life. Have money in the bank. Have an emergency fund. We talk about having $1,000 before you get out of debt, and then once you're out of debt, bump that up to 3 to 6 months of expenses. Be doing that. Be investing consistently, regardless of what the market is doing, even if it's down. If you're at that point, keep investing. Be consistent in that. That is how you grow wealth over a long period of time. So if you have more questions on all this stuff, I really would recommend going through Financial Peace University. This is our class that walks you through all the basics of tried and true financial principles. And they're common sense, you guys. It's not complicated. You don't have to have a master's degree in finance to win with money. It really is this level of common sense and consistency, biblical knowledge when it comes to being wise with your money. And it is that simple. So while there's a lot of hysteria out there, I just want to zoom in and give you hope again that you have the ability to handle your money and to change your future. You do. And I've seen it over and over and over again. So if you believe in it and you're like, yes, we've got this, but you have a friend who may be a pessimist, maybe an Enneagram 6, may think that the world is coming to the end all the time, send them this video. We'll spread some hope, calm everyone down, and be consistent on what we're doing with our money. Because remember, most important thing is to take control of your money and create a life you love.